Okay, um, so I guess if you're watching this video, you're kind of stuck and doing this project. So I am here to help. If you don't know who I am, my name is Brett. I'm a civil student that has unfortunately lots of experience doing AutoCAD, and a big reason why I want to be a civil engineer is because I was sick of doing AutoCAD, and I'm sure you guys are too. So I'm going to go through and help you guys kind of step by step work through this project. One thing to note, just don't straight up copy like verbatim what the locations and the elevations and like the information is. Like have some flexibility and think a little bit outside the box because while this is just a step by step guide to help you through, don't just copy it and hand it in. I really don't want to have to be dinged for plagiarism. So just, you know, follow it as a guide and try to come up with an area yourself to at least have something that you feel like you're the one that created it. This is just a crutch in comparison to Paul's video that he has, except this is directly the project. So without further ado, let's get into it. So you're going to first open up the base drawing that he has provided. I think it's called Bedford West Park and Ride Base Plan. So open that guy up and you'll see that this is Innovation Drive. You have Angus Morton Drive, and I believe this is the area that we're going to be building in. From Paul's video that he posted, I kind of have a step-by-step screenshot of what he does. So I'm then in this first part of the video, I'm going to go up until about probably number 5, maybe 6. It depends how long this takes. So we're going to set up the digital terrain, conduct a slope analysis for your constraints uh, drawing that you have to submit, as well as your parking lot area location, and then we're going to do some finished grades. So to begin, we aren't given any kind of contours to make a surface, so we first have to bring in the term project topo survey. That's also from Brightspace. So download that, save it to an area. I'll show you what it looks like here in the notepad. So it's just a bunch of original grade points, a lot of them. There's also road points. We're going to make 2 separate surfaces from these. You could kind of combine them, but I think it's better to separate them. So let's do that. So we're going to insert points from file. Okay, hit that plus, and then wherever you saved that file that you've downloaded, I have a nice Civil 3D project folder here, term project, hit open. Okay, now you're going to have to select what type it is. I believe it's point, northing, easting, elevation, and description. That's what that stands for. We're not going to add it into a point group because there are different ones. Okay, sweet. So you see how that populated? Just, you know, a bunch of different things. Actually, now that I just thought about, oh wait, okay, so he does have the drawings that you need in this drawing folder. You see down at the bottom, there's constraints, site plan. That's what I was kind of pondering about what you might need. Okay, so we brought those points in. Next, we're going to create point groups for OG and road. Oops, so new. This is OG. We're going to include with a raw description of OG. Hit OK. Terrific. Do this again. Oops. Do it again for the road. So include description, road. And I know sometimes I work pretty fast. You might have to rewatch a few bits, but as I hope you guys understand, like I also got the same stuff that you guys have, so I might work a little bit faster, but if you want to always rewatch it, uh, go ahead, because that's the beauty of having things pre-recorded. Okay, so from those point groups, we're now going to create, uh, I'm going to create two different surfaces. You could combine them if you want. I just like separating them. So we're going to call this one OG, and we're going to populate that with our point group that we've created, OG. That should bring a nice bunch of lines here. And before we kind of get too carried away, we're going to set a boundary around this. You see how there's like tin lines? These are called tin lines. They're just triangulated lines that go from elevation to elevation. That's what populates your contour. They're outside of that. That can kind of skew your contours a little bit. So we're going to click this property boundary that we have, and over in the surfaces, we're going to add that. And what that will do, will trim just the exterior where it's not relevant. And you see there's not information here. If you included the road, then it would kind of triangulate a little bit, but like the existing grade point here and like the road point there, that's not like a very accurate contour line, you know what I mean? Because you're going from 53.5 up in the lot, and then you're going down to 50.8, which is like, that looks like the asphalt curb. So that's why I like doing two different surfaces. So we're going to do that again. This one's called road. Same idea. Populate that with your point group. Add road. Okay. Okay. And you see how that like really, like, this is our road surface, how these lines are trying to connect over here. We really don't want that. So let's see, what's the easiest way? Okay. We are going to turn off the existing grade, and there's another trick that you can get rid of these lines. You can delete them. Okay, I'll go over that a little bit slower. So you select your surface. Up here, the top just changed, right? So under edit surface, bunch of different tools that you can do to edit the surface. We're going to delete lines, and just like click and drag over lines that you don't need. And it does the exact same thing as selecting a boundary around tin lines. You'll see like that. They kind of do the same thing, but instead of drawing out, the boundary of the road, you can simply delete them, and it might be a little bit quicker that way for you. Okay, so let's turn off the road surface. You'll probably need the road surface when you draw your road connecting to your parking lot. So we have our surfaces created. Good job, you've made it this far. Next, we are going to analyze the existing grade, but I think first we have certain parameters that we can't build within this boundary. I believe, let me bring up the term project here. Yes, so we can't build 10 meters from the side property line, which is this guy. And then we can't build 20 meters. Oh, no, wait, sorry. The parking lot must be at least 10 meters away from all side property boundaries and 20 meters from Innovation Drive right of way, which is the right of way, if you're wondering, is the property boundary that is along the road. So we're going to offset 10 meters. And to help you kind of visualize or pay attention to the boundaries that you've selected, it's very useful to kind of change colors of lines just so you don't get confused. So that's our 10-meter boundary offset, but it's also asking us that we need to be 20 meters from this front property boundary along the road. So we're going to do the same process, except now we're going to offset the property boundary 20 meters. Okay, but now we have too many lines, and what we need to do is kind of figure out which lines govern where. So this line here, which I'll put in green, right here, that's the one that is 20-meter offset. So we don't need anything else around this side here. So we're going to do a command called break, or BR. And what this does, it just separates. You see how that's just separating a line, and we're going to go right up to this point. Oops. You might also have to turn your snaps on in some areas. Oh, come on now. Why are you doing this to me? That's annoying. Okay, anywho. So same idea. We're gonna break that spot. So we don't need this line because that would limit our area behind this line even more. So we're gonna delete it. Okay, and now kind of the opposite. We don't need this line here, but what we should do is extend this green line to meet the yellow line so that we kind of have a new boundary. So to do that, select the yellow boundary or the boundary that you've created and type the command EX for extend, and then hover over the new line. You see how that extends out to meet that boundary? So do it there and do it down here. Terrific. And then the new boundary, now we don't need this yellow line, right? Because this is the green line that governs there. The yellow governs everywhere else. So what we're going to do is select that green line, and we're going to trim. Oh, okay. I guess it doesn't want to trim. Sometimes you'll have to break it instead. AutoCAD can work in mysterious ways when it wants to. So if it doesn't trim like that, then just break it and make sure that it goes right to that corner, and then delete it. So that's your total boundary that you could construct your parking lot in. So next we need to do a slope analysis. This is very similar to the assignments that we were doing, particularly assignment 3. So to do that, we're going to go to our existing grade or original grade, go to your surface properties, go to your analysis up here, analysis type, we're going to go to slopes. This doesn't really matter too much. And let's see, what does Paul require? For the existing grade, I believe it's anything over 20% that we should analyze. Yeah, here it is here. I'll put it on the screen so you guys can see. So you should conduct a slope analysis for the original ground and highlight those areas with a slope greater than 20%. So some of you might have already done this and have realized that, well, hang on a sec, that really limits where we can build. I asked Paul if you can still build within these 20% slopes. It just, you want to avoid it as best as you can. And this is just due to limit how much excavating you're going to be doing. If you think about you're trying to make a nice flat or somewhat flat driveway, and you have a hill, you're going to try to avoid that hill because you're going to be cutting a lot more. And when you're cutting a lot more, that's way more expensive. Excavation is the most expensive part of construction typically. So you try to avoid it as best as you can. But as you'll see, when we change our existing grade to our slope analysis, remember, I'll go over that again. So we just did the analysis. We go back to our original grade, go to our surface properties, and it's a surface style now, where it says HRM slopes analysis. We're going to turn that bad boy on. Okay, so I believe I probably should have maybe made these colors a bit different, but anywhere that's black, that's a slope greater than 20%. So you can kind of see it's almost unavoidable that we're probably gonna be building somewhere within that area that's 20%. It is what it is. I did ask Paul again, and he does say that that's correct, and I can show you the conversation if you guys are skeptical, but believe me that I'm not I'm not trying to lie to you. So just use some kind of polyline and kind of trace around these areas so that you know where these slopes are. You can use any of these layers. Let's pick one that might be useful. Let's see. Finish grade, depth points, baseline. I don't know. You guys can pick like whichever one you want. Let's use width 0.2. And we're going to make the areas in this cyan color. You might benefit by turning your snap off for this. Just it can be pretty, like if it's picking points that you don't want, you might have issues. And just use polylines to kind of trace around the areas that are greater than 20% slope. You know, it's just connecting the dots. Which can be a bit tedious sometimes, as you can see. But I'm just going to do it real quick. It might not be very accurate, but so these are kind of the ones that we want to pay attention to. The ones up here we probably care about as well. It's bing, bang, boom, you know. It goes up there. You can, like if you're ever drawing a polyline and you're kind of far away from where you started, you can hit C for close and it'll just reconnect it back to where you began drawing it. It's a little bit of a shortcut. Okay, so we're almost done here. I'm going to ignore this one because, you know what? Actually, no, I'm not. It's better to put too much information than not enough, I suppose. Okay, so now we have our areas with 20% slope. Now we're going to turn, you could probably put on your contours if you want. I don't know why the surface does this. You see how these contours are like spiked? Uh, they're not really supposed to do that. Contours aren't supposed to cross like that, but this isn't my information, so do that with what you want. Okay, terrific. So if you made it this far, that is a big chunk of the constraints area. Another constraint that we have, I believe, is we need to access the lot must be from Innovation Drive. So we can't connect our road up here. Innovation Drive is just here, right? Okay, so that's a constraint that we should talk about. And another constraint is that there has to be 240 spaces. That's a lot of spaces. So he has been nice of us. Sorry, that wasn't proper English. He was nice to provide a typical bay for parking. I believe one of these bays is 40 spaces. You can count them yourself, but I think when I watched his video, they were 40. So if we need 240, then we need 6 of these bad boys. So there's 1, 2, 3, and then I just copied those 3 to make 6. So this is kind of where you can have a little bit of flexibility, right? Like maybe you want to configure it this way, or maybe you want to configure it this way. Just pay attention to which way the lanes are going, and the lanes are, you know, the empty space. These are parking spaces. These are empty spaces, or the laneways. So make sure you got your 240 spaces. Okay, sweet. Now, I don't think he's gone over this, but one thing that might be very useful for you guys is to make all of these just like one solid thing that you can move around. Like you see if I move around this one, those ones kind of stay in place. You can create a thing called a block, like a building block, B-L-O-C-K, type that in. And what this does is it's going to group all of these objects. You can group anything just not like 3D objects. That will crash your Civil 3D. But any kind of like lines, objects, symbols, whatever, you can create a thing called a block. So we'll call this parking lot configuration. Doesn't matter. It's going to ask you for a base point. The objects, you don't want that selected. If you select that, then it'll prompt you to select the stuff again, but make sure that that's not ticked. We're going to convert to a block. We are going to allow it to be explodable. And we're going to specify on screen for the base point, and you'll see what I mean by base point. So let's hit OK. All right, so down here, where's your base point? So a base point is kind of this one single grip. You see, a grip is that blue square. So you can kind of move everything around all as one unit rather than, 6. I don't know if he went over that in the video. So, okay, now we have our 240 watts. Sweet. You can configure it this way. I think in Paul's demonstrational video, he configures it somewhat like this. Now it's up to you to figure out, where do you want to put that? Again, you might benefit by turning off this snaps. If you don't know what snaps is, you can it will automatically try to pick these grips. And that can be kind of annoying. Like if you want to put it here, you see how it will try to put it maybe not as precise. So you can just turn that off. A shortcut to turn that off is F3. So if you just, you see what I'm doing when I type F3, that thing's turning on, off, off. Come on, okay. I guess I did it too many times. All right, so that's just another shortcut that you can do your thing in. So, find a nice little spot for your parking lot and consider the slopes that are 20%. Maybe you don't want to put it there. Maybe you want to put it, up here. I don't know. It's up to you. You have the power. So I'm just going to plop it, fucking right here. Sure. And that will be your parking stalls. So what Paul has done in his video is make a very, 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 very simple feature line around this. You could make this very complicated. Like if you look at some of the examples in his slides, the parking lots don't really look like that. But for the simplicity of this project, make it not as complicated because that will probably save you a little bit of time down the road. Okay, so we have our configuration of lots here. What are we going to do next? So based off what Paul says, we should create a feature line around your parking lot boundary. From that feature line, we're just going to be able to put elevations, like your finished grade elevations. So if you just hit polyline and just kind of trace around the general rectangle or square or whatever shape you decide, there is now just a beautiful rectangle. Look at that. Cool. So the next thing to do is to kind of figure out the elevation points of these corners. So to do that, select your feature line, or the polyline, sorry. Select that, and we're going to create a feature line from object with this selected. If you don't have that selected, not a problem. It will just prompt you to select whatever you want. You can do it this way. This is a bit quicker if you select it first and then go to your object, and then it'll automatically bring open this window here. So erase existing entities if you want. It's going to put it on this layer. Sounds good. We can assign it elevations, and I think he does this too, so I'll try to replicate that. So what elevation do we want? Well, we don't want it to be original grade. We are going to assign it an elevation of, let's see, kind of don't pick like 60 meters because then it's going to be way too tall. you kind of want it to be reasonable. So if you look at some of these points around here, like up here, that's about 55. Down here, that's about 51. So how about we just chuck it at like, I don't know, 53. Hit OK. All right. So now you have a feature line, right? If you go to your properties, what's the minimum and maximum elevation? You can, change just maybe one corner. Maybe you want one corner to be higher up, these to be lower. Let's do that just to show you how to do it. There are tools up at the top here that you can use to edit elevations. Paul likes to use the elevation editor, which brings open a window. I think that's a little cumbersome. The best tool is the one with this little lightning bolt. If you click that, you can kind of hover over these corners, whichever one you want. And you see how there's like a nice green little triangle. You can also use it to select your slope in between these 2 points. So say this is elevation 53 and we want to grade it. Maybe let's grade it at, I don't know, -3%. That's going to automatically change this elevation. You see what I did there? So 53 down to -3. So now that's at 49, but that might be a little bit too low. So you can also just, you could set that to 0 and then that would change back to 53, or you could say, let's make it at 1% from 53. So what is that? 51.92. That seems reasonable. Okay. And for your parking lot, we can't have a grade less, or yeah, we can't have a grade less than 1%, and we can't have grades greater than 5%. So let's see, that goes up at about 2. That's at 0. So we should probably put that at -1 as well. That's at 0. Well, that's a bummer. We don't want that. So maybe we'll make that at -1%. So that's going to change this grade. So that's at -1%. That's at -1.5%. This one's also going to be at 0. So maybe we'll have to make that at -1% too. -1, -1. So what is that elevation? 51.92. And that's at what? 51.37. Okay, so that's a difference. Just make sure that they're all kind of graded. Okay, so yeah, just to reiterate, this lightning bolt is a great tool, but if you prefer Paul's method, you can open up this window and you can change elevations here. You can change the elevations through these columns. They do the exact same thing. Okay, and I think the very last thing that I will set up is the finished grade that you'll want. So for the finished grade, we are going to create another surface. Right click on your surfaces, call this one FG for finished grade, hit OK. And you might have guessed it, very similar to assignment 4 question 2. So except now we're the ones that created the elevations instead of importing points. So that feature line rectangle that you've manipulated into however you want, we're going to add as a break line. So hit OK. Okay, cool. So now we kind of have our parking lot elevations. Let's just take a look. It's it's a fucking rectangle. It's sick. Okay, so I think I'm going to. You know what? I've got enough time. It's not even at 30 minutes. So this is where I kind of stray away from their grading methods that Paul does. I like doing what I'm used to, and I think it might be a little bit easier, but feel free to do whichever way is best for you. In terms of grading, so we are supposed to be grading 2 to 1 down to the existing grade. This is similar to assignment 4, question 1, that landfill one. I did ask Paul about this too. It is a 2 to 1 slope. It doesn't say on the slides, but I believe his video is at 2:1, so I would assume it's the same. So we're going to go to create a gradation tool, and I believe that we want this 2:1 cut and fill slope, right? It's going to target a surface. It's going to be 2:1, 2:1. That's probably pretty good. But before you get going, make sure that you create a grading group. Paul has a volume-based surface and an automatic surface creation selected for this, and I don't use that because I think it might be more complicated than needed. So I turn that off. If you want to turn it on, fill your boots. I don't. So that's the way I do it. So what surface are we going to be targeting? We don't want the finished grade to be targeted. We want the original grade to be targeted. Okay. This just says what layer do you want to put it on. This is more rules about grading. And when you're ready and you're all set, we are going to hit this button here, create grading. And now it's going to ask you down at the bottom here, which feature line do you want to grade? Well, the only one that we've drawn. So select that. Which side? Obviously the outside of it. Whole length? Yeah, hell yeah, let's do it. Cool. What's your cut slope? 2:1. Yep, hit enter. Fill slope, 2:1. Enter again. So now it's just going to do, you see that white line that's around there? That is our grading that we've created. And if we, let's see if we can, we might not be able to look that at viewer. So what I'll do is select my grading that I've just created. You see how it's a feature line? I believe Paul's is a grading tool or a surface. I just like dealing with feature lines because they're not as complicated for me, and I like to keep things simple. So you might have noticed that our finish grade has a little bit of a warning label. That just means it's out of date. But we're going to add our grading feature line that we've created. Hit OK. All right. And it'll triangulate a little bit outside. You can do like a boundary condition, kind of like what we did here. You can do that for your finish grade too if you wish. Let's see if the feature line that we've selected will help. Yeah, it did. Oh, that's nice. So if you didn't catch what I just did there, I'll redo it. You see how there's kind of like this is the feature line that we've created. It was just highlighted in blue. You see how there's like little lines outside of that? That will slightly affect your volume when you do it. And that it's just a source of error. So if you select your boundary, you have this panel open, you've selected the feature line that you've graded and hit add, it's just going to trim the remainder. It's like trimming the fat off a piece of meat or whatever, and it'll just make your results just slightly more accurate. So let's take a look at this beautiful finish grade that we have. Let's check that out in Object Viewer. Oh yeah, that's a parking lot, isn't it? Oh, so nice. Yeah, so 2:1 slopes. You got your rectangle, which is your parking lot, and it's meeting existing. If you want to see how that kind of fits with the existing grade, just for clarity, let's turn that on. And you can select both of your surfaces and just see how that behaves. Okay, so that red surface, that's the original grade, and this gray surface is going to be the new grade. So you can kind of see where it's exposed, that's probably going to be fill, and where it's hidden, you're going to have to excavate it. See, it's on the bottom. So next up is to do a volume surface, and then I'll probably leave it at that for the first part of this video. And to do a volume surface, it is exactly what you think it is. It's just like the assignments that we've done. Again, I go by my method. It might be not the same as Paul's or even Brandon's. I just find it is a little less convoluted. And I think it might be beneficial for students to learn how how maybe it's just not like there's so many different ways you can do the same thing in AutoCAD. And not to say that any necessary path is wrong. It's just one might be a little bit easier to learn than the other, and that might just be up to whoever is learning. So what I do is I go to my surface, create my surface again, except now we can select a tin volume surface. And it's very similar process to using that volume dashboard, except now we're going to select our base surface, which is our original grade. And what's our comparison surface? Well, that's the finished grade that we've just been building. And let's hit OK. So that just created the surface one. I didn't name it, but you should probably name it if you're going to follow along. So that's going to be where you find your values for your volume. Look at that. So we got some cut, we got some fill. You can see that it's quite a bit more cut than fill. So what that indicates is you should probably bring up the elevations of these corners, right? So if you bring those up, that will diminish your cut, and diminishing your cut and balancing your cut and fill will make it a cheaper project. Okay, I lied. I'll do one more little trick to help you kind of get along. So if you wanted to, I'm just going to freeze a few of these so that we're not looking at the wrong thing. So if you wanted to, play around with the elevations of your parking lot to optimize. I believe this is where Paul and Brandon's method can benefit, where I believe their grading will automatically update when they raise up a parking lot. I don't think ours will. Let me just try though. So select your feature line. There's an object. You can do it in Elevation Editor as well. But I believe if you do raise or lower, there's a tool here, like almost the last one. You click that. What elevation difference do we want? Let's raise it up by like a meter. Okay, cool. So our grading did actually update. That's that's going to save you a bit of time. But you're not quite done because you see how there's an exclamation point. You have to rebuild your surface because, well, both of your surfaces, because now the information has been outdated. That's all that indicates. You can rebuild this automatically. Sometimes if you put an automatic rebuild for a surface, it can crash your computer. So sometimes it's better to leave that off, especially if you're maybe running on a bit of an older computer. So let's see how that affected our surface volumes. Oh, okay, now we have more fill, right? So now you can kind of play around with it. Okay, so we raised it up a meter. Now we have more fill than cut, so we've probably raised it up now too much. Okay, and now you just find that sweet spot where you try to get this as close to zero as possible, because when you balance your excavating, it is very efficient, and engineers are all about efficiency. So that kind of concludes part one uh, of the project. I'm probably going to do part two when I get tired of studying for other things. Um, so I hope that was at least a little bit of help for you guys. If you wanted to advance, definitely take a look at Paul's videos. They are very similar. He messes around with changing the UCS. Yeah, don't do that. I don't think you have to. Just leave it at this view, get used to it. It's just north is straight up. If you change the UCS, that can kind of make things a little bit difficult when you're going to be plotting things. So just try to leave it in this view as best as you can. So that is it. If you've made it this far, there is one more trick that I would highly, highly recommend. And I've shown a few people this, especially when you're doing projects that have volumes and surfaces. And that is if you type in to your command bar options, It's going to bring open a window here. Tons of settings that you can change. You might have noticed that I have these long ass crosshairs. It's like massive, right? It doesn't look like yours. If you like that, you can, oh shit, okay. Type in options there. You can change that. And that is, I believe, in display, your crosshair size. So yours is probably at, I don't know, some value. I just like setting it to 100. It's just a preference that I have. But the big thing that I want to show you is your open and save. There's a spot here where you can automatically save every 10 minutes. It might be useful to set that to like maybe 2 minutes, maybe one, maybe if you're okay with 10 and you haven't been having any issues with crashes, then leave it at 10. It all depends on the software that you're running or the hardware that your computer has. And I do find that if you have it set to maybe every minute it saves, it just will not lose you a bunch of work. And that might stress you out if you have a fatal error, and it happens. Um, things that cause your computer to crash when you use Civil 3D is copying surfaces or like moving the location, or pretty much anything to do with like editing your surface can really, really bog down your computer, and it can cause crashes. Um, so just a heads up to maybe set your display or your saving to maybe like a minute, maybe 5 minutes, and that will give you peace of mind in case you do get a crash and you don't lose all your stuff. All right. Oh yeah, there was one more thing. If you, I think a few students have said that they might they might donate uh, money, I guess. I don't do this for money. I just like helping people with stuff they might struggle with. And I want everyone to not have to take surveying again, because I'm sure some people might really need a good grade on this project. So if you feel like maybe donating or helping me out, you can always e-transfer to that email here. I don't ask for money, even like just a handshake or just saying, hey, Brett, thanks for helping me on that project. It really helped me out. Or a beer at the tea room is always appreciated too. I'm not, I won't turn down any kind of donations. But my grandfather has always said like enough of a gift can just be a hearty handshake and just to say thanks if it does help you. And if it doesn't help you, then I don't know why I wasted your time. Yeah, so I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.